It's a fine foggy night tonight, and I doubt if anyone has ever told you of the marvelous fogs we have in Aberdeen.
Eugene.
Bakersfield.
Los Angeles.
San Francisco.
He wasn't giving me my props in Oaktown.
Portland. Los Angeles.
Los Angeles de California.
San Francisco.
San Francisco?
You gotta find your Irvine.
Irvine?
Hanford.
Eugene.
Seattle!
Seattle.
Seattle.
Sacramento.
Fresno!
We're going to Vancouver.
Modesto, California.
San Diego.
Gina.
You know, there might be an opening for a manager in Visalia next spring.
Yakima, right?
Vallejo, California, the V.
See.
1, 2, 3. Welcome to the West Coast Sojourn podcast. I'm Donnell Alexander,
And I am Lev Anderson.
and we're going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit of culture here today. You know what I want to talk about when we do these episodes that don't have a guest. I want to have like a through line, and this is sort of a cultural through line. That's also a basketball through line because if left to our own devices, we would make this strictly a basketball podcast. But I want to ask you about young Hansen. And he's the newest basketball sensation with the moderately interesting Portland Trail Blazers. He's actually the only interesting thing about them, but he's profoundly interesting in my opinion. He's a center. Can you describe him? He's a rookie. I want to start.
I think we've mentioned him before. He's 7'3", 270-pound dude out of China. I think he's just like 21 or 22 years old.
He's 20.
20 years old. Portland, everyone was surprised by their pick. They picked him like 16th in the draft, whereas he was projected to be like late in the second round. There's only 2 rounds of basketball NBA draft. So he's just kind of a mystery, but I guess the Blazers had scouted him for a couple years before.
I didn't know that.
Yes, they had been scouting him in China.
How'd they know about him? Do you have any idea? Nike thing.
Well, I mean, that's always part of it. I think, there's like the World Games or whatever, but also the Blazers had brought in Mike Schmitz from ESPN. He used to be like, a pro scout looking at, college athletes and a lot of international athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought him in as like an assistant GM a couple of years ago. So it might be one of his guys that was on his radar. And so he's a rookie this year, and, he definitely knows how to play basketball. I think the question is the NBA going to be too fast and too heavy for him? Like he's the kind of,
Why would you say that? Because we went to a game. We saw a play actually 10 days ago against the Sacramento Kings, and I was surprised at how skilled he is. But why would you say that? Well,
I think just it seems like he could get pushed around a little bit. He gets a lot of fouls called on him because either he's a little late reacting or, he just doesn't know how the game is totally refereed yet. But I think that's kind of but he's kind of a big, strong dude. So I don't know. I mean, I think that's the question though is, he's been playing in China, like it's not the same level of competition. Is he going to be able to adapt to the NBA game? And it seems like he is. And then the question is like, what's his ceiling? And I don't know if people know yet,
Okay. Well, I didn't want to talk about it just as a basketball thing because I realized like a lot of people are not interested in basketball, or especially the Portland Trail Blazers who are moderately interested. No, they're actually very interesting. One of my adages is that teams are more interesting. Being a fan is much more interesting as you experience them go from a bad team to contender than it is to contender. Maybe not to champion, but that little space that most fans consider a successful season. It's more interesting going from a bad team to a good team.
As opposed to like where the Lakers have been out where they were like a good team and then they kind of went to turn into a bad team.
You knocked me off my thread, but
right.
I was getting to a point.
Okay.
The point is that I thought of him as a novelty choice because they chose him ahead of where he was supposed to go in the draft.
Right.
And I wonder if he's going to transcend being a novelty thing. Because the fact is he drew this huge amount of ratings for the exhibition season. All Japan, and not all Japan.
China.
I'm sorry. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We are definitely cutting that out. He did this. Maybe we have to keep it now. No, he gets all these clicks and views from China, and that translates into merchandise and fandom. You know, I always say the most underrated part of LeBron's career in building his fame was going from Cleveland to Miami, which is a legitimately international city.
Right.
And builds your brand that way.
Yeah.
And I think there's the potential here with this guy who looks surprisingly good. I mean, he's very immature physically, I would say, as much as you can say someone who's 7'3" can be.
Right. And I mean, you can see too that the Blazers are already putting out like Chinese jerseys with his name, like spelled in Chinese on the back. And like, they're already like marketing towards that crowd. And I think they might even have like their own in-house like podcast or media team covering him specifically for the Chinese audience. Yeah. I mean, I guess, you know, in some ways it was kind of, I feel like it was both a basketball pick and a cultural pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did. I don't think you can pick someone like that without thinking about the Chinese market. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was a big part of their choice or a little part of their choice, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he's supposed to be like the next Yao Ming, and if people don't know who that was, you know, very skilled NBA All-Star player from China in the early 2000s. Is that one?
I think we can go to early 2000s.
Yeah.
Did he play at all in the 90s? No, but then Yao Ming jerseys were everywhere. And this is my question, because I noticed the fandom. There's obviously that woman the Asian woman who was doing wearing the jersey and doing the dance and super into the young Hansen. Am I saying his name right?
Well, it's Hansen, I think. Hansen.
Just like it's spelled. She was getting into it, but there are a lot of kids, you know, who are wearing the jersey. And you think there's a novelty to there being an Asian basketball star? Is there an unspoken novelty?
I think there still is, right? You had Vinsanity, right? Wait, wasn't it not Vinsanity? Vinsanity.
Yeah, Vin Baker was not Asian.
No, Vince Carter, not Vin Baker. Jesus Christ. Vin Baker. Great basketball player, renowned alcoholic, out of control.
But he came back.
Yeah, he was great. No, I like Vin Baker. Yeah, Lin Sanity, Jeremy Lin, who was of Chinese descent. But I think he was a little different, right, too, because he was born and raised in America. I think Jeremy Lin was from the Bay Area or something. You know, he was a fun basketball player who had a great like run with the Knicks.
One of the all-time great runs.
Yeah, as a player, that lasted a couple weeks. Or
it was more of a feeling.
Yeah,
it's just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, and then Yao Ming. I mean, that's about it, really. And then, I mean, I don't know. I guess it'll just become more and more common eventually, right? Like even, I think just as soon as like, you know, physically and everything else, that the Chinese game is coming along. I mean, look at who's the best player in the world in baseball now.
Yeah, it's
Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, of course. Okay, I'm sorry. Of course, he's an anomaly in every way.
He's an anomaly in every way, but he's also like, you know, Japanese, and he's you know, to have the greatest baseball player alive right now be a Japanese dude. Right. It's great, you know?
And I think, though, that's why the Dodgers spend all that money. They'll make all the money in merchandising, and just the brand becomes so much bigger when you have a star like Paul Bunyan.
Right.
Shohei Ohtani.
Right. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, how has it affected the Dodgers, you think? Like, I mean, the Dodgers have always had a large fan base, you know, nationally at least, but like, I mean, did they pick him too because of the Asian market?
Oh, of course. And I think that's why Rui Hashimura remains with the Lakers. That's his intangible benefit. There are murals of Ohtani in Little Tokyo and all over town because there's a Japanese community there.
Yeah.
And I think someone like Ohtani, though, he belongs to the world.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you this because your son's mom is Korean. Do you feel like this athlete's going to have more of an impact on your son's life than other ones?
Well, it could just because he's not that into sports,
Yeah.
but so like somebody like that, like being kind of a novelty, like I think he probably pays, slightly more attention to young Hansen
Hmm.
than the NBA in general, maybe. But I don't know, you know, yeah, I think a very little, but that's just because it's a novelty and my son isn't super into sports
Mhm.
like I was growing up.
And what do you think of I think I made the observation that when we went to Moda Center, I hadn't been there like 7 years,
Yeah.
a long time. And the mix of the crowd was really it looked like Portland, which is something you don't get at a Laker game.
Right. In LA, the tickets are more expensive, so
It's not just the tickets, the parking, the entire
yeah.
experience. The beers are like $20 legit, I think.
Yeah, and you kept saying when we were at the game, you're like, this is not like the Staples Center.
No.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as the Blazers kind of suck, the ticket prices are affordable.
Mm.
But I feel like even in the heyday, I think the Blazers have just benefited from being the lone pro sports team. They're not now because you have the Timbers soccer team.
I'm obligated to say that every time. I mean, no, people do like the Timber.
Yeah, I mean they it might be harder to get Timbers tickets than Blazer tickets. I think and I think Timbers games are in some ways less affordable than Blazer games right now, at least. But I think they benefited from being the only game in town. So, like, if you were a sports fan in Oregon and you wanted to root for a professional sports team, it was Portland. So I think there's always been that advantage for them. And so you've had enough like season ticket holders that have probably had their parents were season ticket holders, and so there's probably a mixed crowd like that. And Portland's more of a working class place.
That's what it is.
And yeah, so I don't know. I think it's just that the tickets remain somewhat more affordable. You can take the bus, public transit to the games pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Parking isn't like incredibly prohibitively expensive or anything. So bringing Dame back too kind of falls in that same modus operandi, I feel like, as the young Hansen.
And that of it being a business move?
Slightly, yeah. I think so. Or at least a personal interest move.
I think
like the business move sounds a little more cynical, but like, people really love Dame, and when, and then now that he's back, it gives them more interest, in the team.
I always have this worry that we're going to talk so much. It's a legitimate worry because nobody gives a shit about the Blazers. But we talk too much about them. And so I'm going to interject something I remember that I heard that's really funny. The name for the lineup that's Al Horford, Jimmy Butler, Steph, and Draymond.
Is for the Golden State Warriors. Yeah.
The near-death squad. I'm sorry, the near-death lineup. How many left can I blow?
Well, I think Death Squad is kind of funny too. I mean,
yeah, but they
kind of dark, but
basketball.
Yeah, they're an old team.
Yeah.
See how they can hold up.
Well, but I tell you, I've been listening to a lot of reports this year, this season. Just kind of, I'm going to be writing about basketball a little more. A lot of people, they're like a dark horse hipster team. Some people have called the Blazers the hipster pick this year, but there's a contingent of people, of watchers of hoops, who think that lineup in San Francisco can win just because there's so much depth, and you don't have to play Jimmy Butler even 70 games, any of those guys.
Yeah, I think if they can stay healthy, I think they'll be pretty good. It seems like the NBA, like a lot of professional sports these days, there's more parity in the league. Like it's more open to, there's not there's not like 2 or 3 dominant teams that you just know will be in the championship round. There's a chance for other teams to step up.
So that was like this consensus on the basketball episode that we did with Mike Wise and Chris Jenkins, which you should check out. We talked like that. I don't think we gave OKC its due. I mean, really, they're They're so deep, and there's defensively a great team. And, you know,
I mean, if I had to put money on somebody winning, it would probably be OKC, but, you know, we'd like to make it more interesting and pretend like other teams have a chance. Like,
I think that might be it. And Denver's not to be denied either, but there's always a surprise every year.
I think so. I think it's open. It's fairly open. I mean, even OKC, like, you know, they got a little lucky facing Indiana at the end with all their injuries and such, with Halliburton going down. Because I mean, Indiana was giving them a run for their money until Halliburton went down. Right? I mean, people forget that. I think
that is very true. Yeah. I mean, people both thinks that his injury made a difference, and that people do forget.
All right. I feel like we should give some people something other than basketball.
Well, here's the thing. I don't want to leave this. This is because this is the thing. This is where I've been heading the whole time, and because I'm thinking about the cultural influence. I don't think we're letting anything out of the bag. We were talking to Jeff Chang earlier today about his visit to Powell's in November, which you should come to if you can. The cultural pantheon of Asian athletes. We're talking about who's in the pantheon. I'm going to put Bruce Lee in there just because it's Jeff's book, but he's also an athlete, influential athlete. Ichiro, Yao Ming. I'm not going to put Jeremy Lin in there.
Okay,
but if you had to choose the odds of Hansen joining this pantheon, would it be 1 in 10, 1 in 100? Or 1 in 1,000?
Well, I'll just, you know, do the lame thing and choose 1 in 100, I think. I think it's really hard to tell. And I think as a Portland Trailblazer fan, like, we have the big man curse.
Ooh.
You know, ever since Bill Walton and Sam Bowie.
Is that, lay it out.
The big man curses. So Bill Walton was great, right? They won a championship with Bill Walton. The following year, they were going like 55-10 was a record. And then he broke his foot, and he never really played for the Blazers much after that. And then Portland famously picked Sam Bowie, a center, you know, 7-foot dude, over Michael Jordan. And then Sam Bowie went on to break his leg and was cursed forever. Then the Blazers drafted Arvydas Sabonis in Russia, but he didn't come over until he was like in his mid-30s. And he put in some good years with Portland. He was great.
It was in my memoir.
But yeah. But he was, you know, kind of a shadow of his younger self. And then Yusuf Nurkic, even. Like, there was, for a while, Yusuf Nurkic was like, he had like a couple games where he was like over 30 points and 20 rebounds, like putting up huge, insane numbers. In fact, they called it Nurk fever. People were kind of going crazy for him. And then he had a devastating leg break. And then also Greg Oden famously also was going to be the cap piece to the championship team of Lillard it was Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, Greg Oden. And that was the big three that the team needed.
That's a huge one.
And that was huge. And Greg Oden never played more than 30 games in a season, I don't think. And he only lasted a couple of years, really. So that's the curse of these big men. Like, they just can't stay healthy for Portland enough to. There's probably even more I can name. But so I don't know. So I think in the back of most Portland fans' minds, and in mine, when I'm supposed to assess the odds of where young Hansen's career is going to go, you know, I get the big man curse paranoia in my mind about, oh, he's just going to blow out his knee, and that'll be the end of that.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you why I'm choosing 1 in 10, but first I have to tell you why I interjected that Arvydas Sabonis is in my memoir. Yeah, because I was telling you beforehand about, and remember, we got to come back to the 10% why. But I was telling you that the last page of my memoir has D'Angelo in it at his record release party, because it was like the epitome of my New York version of fame. And you know who else was at that party?
Who else? I want to hear more about that party. Yeah.
Oh, well, no. So, I mean, there's D'Angelo's Voodoo Party. And I put it in the book because I knew it was an iconic record. And I wrote a lot of the book to it. At the end, I took like 4 CDs down to West Virginia. Every time I said, had him take the TV out of my room. And for 3 weeks, I just pounded out these memoir pages.
Yeah.
This is the funny story. I don't think I've told you that. Dave Eggers, he was the first editor of the first draft before it went to Random House, and in the midst of it, he won the Pulitzer Prize.
Oh shit!
But he said you have to call back and confirm. We were like doing this over landline, having conversation, and this is 2000. You have to confirm. You have to confirm that you won it, and I said, man, don't call me back. Fuck those dudes. And he never got the Pulitzer Prize.
So you didn't call him back?
Yeah. That's we were in our own world back in the day, man. But what was the point of the story?
So you're apologizing publicly to Mr. Dave Eggers.
I'm not. I apologize for nothing. I mean, like the feeling of turning down a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, imagine.
Yeah, wait, Bob Dylan?
No, what was the point of the story? The point is
so you were getting into young
yeah,
Hansen has a 1 in 10 chance of actually.
No, I was just going to say.
Oh, we were talking about D'Angelo.
The MF Doom was at that party too.
Oh,
isn't that amazing? I mean, you sense that you're at a great party. And I said, well, this book is largely about partying. This should be the last thing. It was in the airport with Chris Webber, and then there's a flashback to actual pseudo-celebrity, and the book ends with this reference to the elements of style. But that's the reason I brought up the Arvita Sabonis thing, because I put everything in the book that I really like. I feel like the 10% thing is very real. Because then it's conditional on him being an all-star level player.
Right.
But being in this market, the Nike connection, the Wyden and Kennedy thing, I think he'll be able to be a big international star without having to move to Miami like LeBron did.
Right.
I think that there's just such a sports and advertising nexus here that he could become huge.
Yeah.
He ever scores 25 points a game, 25 and 10, he'll be bigger than Luka. Luka's going to be so huge this year because
he'll be better
being in LA. I mean, obviously the physical stuff, but just being in that market, it's going to make star stuff happen for him.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think Dame's career was helped by being with Adidas.
Mm-hmm.
Adidas is also has their U.S. headquarters here in Portland. So the access to that and some of those commercials definitely helped his career probably. Well, it's interesting. So what about Sabonis though? So how did he play out in your memoir? What you didn't mention that.
Oh, I felt like I worked for the alternative press in the 90s, and I felt like Arvita Sabonis. My best years, nobody got to see, but that's what you think when you're young. I wrote a memoir that came out when I was 33, so you have an idea. But I felt so washed up. I felt like Arvita Sabonis. But I loved him because of that.
Yeah. You really identified with it.
Yeah. But can I ask you this hoops question? Because it's like the first year that Amazon is going to have basketball. Do you know that?
Oh, are they? Yeah, they're one of the new streaming partners or whatever. And it's going to be back on NBC too, right?
Exactly. And I think, don't Charles and Shaq move over to ESPN? It's a change, a big change.
Yeah, and I heard they're only doing 5 shows the whole season or something.
Really?
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah,
that's so wild. No, but I guess I was going to ask about Amazon. How do you feel about watching new sets of analysts? They had to break them in. Remember, I grew up on CBS and those Tommy Hansen teams.
They're not going to just take on their broadcasters.
No, it's Dirk Nowitzki and Blake Griffin are going to be commentators. I think that could be fun. I could see them. I could see them. I'm not Jake. I'm sorry. Blake is a funny dude. Relatively.
I think Dirk is kind of a funny dude too. You remember seeing those photos of Dirk and Steve Nash in their off season partying in some bar in Wisconsin or something, passed out on a pool table or something.
Well, I don't know if that translates into commentary.
Well, I think what I appreciate about the NBA and NBA media is that, most sports are like this, I suppose, but I feel like the NBA even more empowers these athletes as the media personalities. You always have I've been watching some of the baseball and, John Smoltz is a great color commentator for the Fox Sports coverage of baseball. But like all the smoke podcasts, I feel, and Chuck and Charles and Kenny, like those guys are like huge celebrities, like more than normal sports commentators should be. Like those guys are huge, and all the smoke thing has great conversations, and so I appreciate the NBA really kind of putting the players forward like that in a way, and they're maybe lightening the reins a little bit on what they view as viable broadcasts. I don't know how the Amazon thing will do. I mean, I don't think I've watched much of the Amazon football coverage. Yeah, but I've heard people say that it's great. Like, the presentation of it and everything is good, top notch. So, I guess this is what happens when ESPN gets real competition, right?
Right.
You get better product.
Yeah, that's exactly how it goes.
Yeah.
So we've got this new feature that we're going to have on our podcast. I think we tried it out a little bit up until now, where we ask people what's going on where they are right now. Is that the best way to describe it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of fun to maybe put in like a 10 words or less kind of thing, just so forces somebody to be a little succinct or specific about what's going on in their place. Because as part of the West Coast Sojourn, we want this to, help fill in and the lack of local news reporting that we get to pick up, from the region. And so we appreciate people's opinions of what's happening around them. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes for our audience as well. I mean, I don't know how people can chime in necessarily that way. They can definitely write to Nell, but I think we'd like to hear from you too.
Be writing me. There are comment sections for the YouTube followers, and on Substack. I like your input, but
yeah. So we look at that, and we want to hear what's going on with you. And also, what you might want to hear about too. If you're,
Well, I brought it up because I want to ask you, because this is like the weekend after the No Kings protests. I think Portland's pretty calm just in general. I live out in the numbers. It's a little more hectic in terms of people out of their mind on the street. I saw these guys get on the bus yesterday. They had 6 huge, the biggest bags of cans that I've ever seen, like bags individually. They each had 2. And the last person pushed their 2 on, so it was 6. They had to take up the seats for people with disabilities, and it just filled up the whole first half of the bus. I went in the back. And then the person who pushed on the last 2 bags came up in a wheelchair. They were doing all of this, their huge 2 bags in a motorized wheelchair.
Oh my God.
It's just like when you say Portland's on fire and all that madness, it's just madness. But the amount of, it's always weird to see white people struggle anyway. Let's not kid ourselves. And that's like what you see here. And you're like, these poor white bastards, how fucked up must they be? But I think that what's going on in Portland isn't a monolith, but we're in a cool part of town. How would you say the vibe is?
In Portland, I think the vibe is good. It was interesting. I saw, this is a little bit speaking to what you're getting at. It was interesting with I don't really log into Facebook that often. Like usually any Facebook posts I have are just cross-posted from Instagram automatically. But I went on there this morning, and there was this guy that I went to high school with, and I have very few, unfortunately, I have very few like diehard MAGA friends, And I say unfortunately, just, like I like to think I'm pretty well-rounded and know all kinds of people.
That's not a part of you is shitty.
Yeah. But, he had written this whole thing, or he maybe reposted somebody going off about like, oh, you've got like 40,000 protesters in Oregon, and this is aping a talking point that Portland people used in a way, but it was like, imagine if instead of, marching, they actually cared about homelessness and cleaning up stuff. And I'm thinking, motherfucker, like, I bet if you were to go around the country and look at all the people that volunteer to help with like houselessness or drug addiction or cleaning up the cities or whatnot, picking up trash, volunteering their time and donating a lot of money to these different things, I am pretty certain the progressive wing of this world would far outweigh anything that the conservative people are doing outside of their churches.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think their churches are doing that much, because they're more about worshiping wealth than they are about, actually walking the talk of Jesus. So I'm just like, oh my God, these people just have no fucking clue. Suggesting that leftists, progressives, and people don't care about these issues or don't do these things. I know so many people here in Portland that do stuff, that volunteer, that spend their careers not making a lot of money, but trying to help their communities. So, these people that think they can, lob these rhetorical bombs towards the left in terms of social responsibility or social community or having people's back, they're just full of shit. So don't let people talk like that, because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
This is only slightly related, but I feel like it's worth sharing. Maybe I've shared it with you before. Our friend, who we'll call Weird Steve, being in the business of talking to people at churches about turning their grounds and buildings into good works. Because as he tells them, you look out into your pews and those people are never coming back. And it's actually become a very good job for him. I won't talk about it too much because I don't know how much he likes, but that's like the best you can do with religion these days, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of religious organizations that are doing a lot of important stuff, but yeah, like using their resources to go to the people in need, or to provide housing. Like like, I don't know what's still going on, but I know there were a lot of Catholic churches that were bringing in undocumented immigrants, right, when all these ICE raids were happening, to shelter them in the churches. Because one thing that Jesus was helping out people was poor migrants. If Jesus was around today, that would be one of his key constituencies, probably.
Yeah. And I know we should cut out soon, but I was going to say that before I went to the march on Saturday, I happened upon in Pioneer Square, downtown Portland, this huge rally it was like a pre-rally from people of faith. I put it on at Donnie Shell Instagram, but those people, in a lot of ways, because most of us aren't going to church or anything like that, or synagogue, or I don't know why I'm looking at you when I'm saying synagogue. Because why in the world would you ever go to a synagogue? Have you ever been to a synagogue?
Yeah, but I could probably fewer than 20 times in my life.
I've been to a mosque fewer than 20 times, but I've been in mosque, and I feel like the vibes are really similar.
Yeah, I mean, I love going in mosques. I mean, I've never been in for a service, but when I was traveling in Turkey and stuff, the mosques were amazing. They felt like very spiritual places.
Yeah, I don't know why I took that detour. We can call it a wrap. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Should people know that we've got guests coming up?
Yeah, we've got some exciting guests coming up soon. Again, we talk about any and everything. It's not just basketball.
No. And you know what I'm interested in? But you know what's debuting next week? The University of Oregon's Grateful Dead influenced uniform.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You seen it?
I saw that. They look good.
They haven't worn them yet. That's for next week.
Probably.
See, I love, that's the thing. We can talk about sports. We can talk about so many other things at the same time, because sports is, dare I use the word, intersectional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're looking forward to the Jeff Chang reading in November on the 11th at Powell's. And, we're just watching opening season on Amazon and every platform the NBA is offering.
Yep.
All right. Peace.
Peace out, y'all.